we can pull up ourselves on Google, but it's gonna echo. It's 20 seconds behind. So if it pulls up for you, like it's up right now, turn
Okay.
off speaker. All right, guys. Brandon Hanley, Jason Pockrant. We are a couple dudes that connected over losing our fathers to addiction. And that's kind of what we're going to tell our little story about today. Jason, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, bud, to people who may not know you?
Yeah, so my name's Jason Pockrant. I'm the founder of Fatherless to Fatherhood. I also run the company Live to Give. Long story short, I'm just a dad here working on changing the lives for fatherless fathers. In my opinion, is a forgotten generation. I wrote a couple books I wrote a book on confidence for dads, and then I also wrote a book called Father-Daughter Conversations. My mission is just to out there, trying to spread the word and make awareness to the fact that fatherless fathers are out there, and there's a lot of men that have lost their dads to whether it's death, divorce, or abandonment, and too many of them fail to realize the magnitude of that impact. Men are in their 40s before they even realize or identify that they're fatherless, and so I've been fortunate enough at 25 years old to kind of start my journey of introspection on this and kind of changing my life around to be a better dad for my daughter. And so I'm just out here trying to make a difference and give some of that back to the other dads out there. And like Brandon said, I ran across him, and he opened up a little bit about some things and kind of just blew me away a little bit and kind of took me back. So I always tell people you get bonus points when I find dads that had their dad die, because I usually get on a pretty awesome conversation with them at some point. So that's how we're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. No. So, I mean, our stories are, they're varied, but one of our sinking points is that our dads both passed away to a drug addiction or drugs in of itself. Um, I think that may have been probably one of the more public responses, at least on Facebook, that I've ever put out there. It is it's part of the ebook that I've done, and part of which I've put out there before. I've definitely talked about it on the podcast quite a few times. But I think it's the first time that I connected with somebody else and just said, "Hey, here's my story." And the question that you had asked was, "What is one thing you'd like to hear your father say?" I believe, right?
Right.
And I actually talked to Meg about that this morning, my wife, because I hadn't told her about our conversation, and I said,
Right.
basically what it boils down to is that there are two things. Like, one is that I grew up without a dad, so he really wasn't in my life, and it's not that that was really a bad thing in of itself, because he was an abusive man, but that's how he was raised. Not that I'm giving anything to it, but I may have been raised that way. I may have been abused as a child, and who knows what kind of damage that could have done, versus not having him in my life and kind of always wishing he was there and always having this ideal vision or version of him. So in my head, it was always like, if my dad was here, here's what he would be doing with me, type of thing.
Sure.
And what I had said though in the end was, it's not so much what I wish or I want to hear him say. It's what some of the things that it would have been cool to do something with him, to have spent some time with him, to have had one of those moments with him. That was for me, kind of what came out of giving that answer.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I find it interesting. Some of the responses I saw too. Right? For myself, I guess I never realized the things that I didn't have from my dad until, like, I didn't realize the things that were missing until after he was gone.
Mm,
So for me, it was that walk down the football field, high school graduation,
right.
like walking down that day when I looked in the bleachers and saw that empty seat and knew my dad wasn't there, and when I got married, knowing that my dad wasn't there.
Mm,
And so it's interesting. And another concept I want to ask your take on this, Brandon. I interviewed a guy named Anthony Jakes on the Fatherless to Fatherhood podcast, and he grew up without his dad. And I remember specifically, he had told me he made a comment that you don't miss what you never had. Because he essentially said, well, my dad was never there, so I didn't have a reason to miss my dad. Like he wasn't there, so I don't think about it. Out of sight, out of mind. I had other father figures and grandparent figures. And to me, that just kind of struck me as interesting. Kind of the idea of like how many other men suppress that, the same concept. And I'm not going to be like my dad, right? We try so hard. I'm not going to drink because my dad drank. Like I refuse to do drugs because my dad drank drugs. I won't cheat on my wife because my dad cheated. And then, we quickly realize, 20 years into the marriage or whatever the case is, that you physically and mentally do all of those things that you spent 20 years trying to be the good dad who didn't do. So what are your thoughts on that? Having not had your dad.
You got a couple things there, and actually I got to find something to jot down the things that I would love to respond to here. So one of the things that you're asking is, out of sight, out of mind, right? Basically. Right. And then the other part of that is, how do we avoid becoming what we don't want to become? Is that right? Is that about right? How do we avoid becoming like the drug addled, abusive, the jerk, or the parent that we've got that we feel sucks?
Well, I think on that point, my stance on that point is that we try so. I believe it's a false mentality that men try so hard to not be their father that they actually end up becoming their father.
Okay, cool. I've got answers. I've got perspectives. I've got perspectives. Right. I've got perspectives, and this is actually, this is, like I said before we started this conversation and started sharing it, is that there's a lot of things that I've come to realize over the past couple of years of personal development and growth, for lack of better terminology, that I've done on myself. And it also gives credence to what you said too, that look, I'm 41, right? And it took me a while to get to this point. I always recognize that I immediately recognized that I was a fatherless father as soon as I had children though. So as soon as I had children, I realized that I was missing there. I didn't have somebody I could reach out to that was a father that knew everything about me, that could say, hey, you've been through this when you were 18 and here's how you handled it. You got this type of thing. Right.
Did that just come to you, or did you kind of
the fatherless father thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was literally immediate. It was one of the first things that I jotted down. Really? One of the first things that I jotted down was a memo. The Papa Preacher. One of the first things that I jotted down after Finn was born was that he had the gray eyes that my father had, and I saw my father, and I was pained and I was relieved at the same time. I realized what a crazy, awesome opportunity, or just whatever had entered my life. I had, Finn had been born, and I got to be there. I got to be there with my son without all these other shackles of my father's addictions, without the shackles of his abusiveness. I had all of these things and willingness of things to give that my father personally left on the table. He had his own demons. He went through whatever he had to go through, and I didn't have to face those demons that he did. And I realized that, though, again, the whole fatherless thing, immediately, I recognize that. Yeah.
Nice. I think there's power in that too for you. As I said, the men that I've talked to, that they seem appalled. I'm not. What are you talking about, fatherless? I'm not fatherless.
Yeah.
My dad was there. He works 60 hours a week, but I'm not fatherless. And I was like, to each his own. The interpretation's there. I'm just bringing awareness to the concept. But
yeah, and then there's the people who. So here's where we get into how to avoid becoming like your father, right? And how do you do that is you don't focus, or this is also the out of sight, out of mind thing. If I grew up without a father, I recognized it a little bit. It wasn't a focal point. I also grew up, I want to say homeless in some aspects. There were points where my mom and I literally slept in the car. All right. There were points when we moved around like all over the place, but during those moments, I never looked around and said, I'm homeless. I always looked at it like, man, we're going somewhere new. We're doing something new and exciting. We've got this new thing to face. And I always kind of had like this sunny disposition, or like what was great was I've always had a certain like vibrancy or vibrance for just life, right? And whenever I would go somewhere new, I would bring that. And I can't, and whenever you're the new kid in school too, you always get like people are like, hey, who's the new kid? And they hang out, they sniff around a little bit, and they're like, hey, what's up? And like, you got the opportunity right then and there to be 100% yourself and full of life, or you can go sink into a shell. So to me, it was just like always the new adventure of doing it. So it's kind of like you can take your perspective on it. You can play the victim, or you can just own, you can own some of that, right? You can be like, these are some choices. I wasn't consciously making those choices back then, by the way. Like, it was just like, that was just how it came out. Now we can look at our parents and the things that we focus on. If we focus on the negative aspects of things, those are going to be the things that show up in our lives. I mean, it's that simple, Jason. It's like as coaches, and you're a coach, right? So do you teach your guys to say, hey, why don't you write down all the shitty things that are happening in your life, and let's keep talking about that every week? You do that?
No.
What do you do?
No.
What do you do? I mean, like, let's talk about how do we get somebody from doing that?
I always tell people in the Confident Father's Guidebook, I remember I ended it with the vow at Live to Give is that we vow to live in the present, let go of the past, and envision the future. And I've had my fair share of, debating the concept with people about the difference between counseling and coaching, because I get tired of people calling me a therapist. And, but yeah, it's that idea, man. I mean, we have to be sensitive to some of the things you need to work through, but there comes a time in our life where you have to accept what happened. I mean, you have to find that healing on the emotional level, but when it comes to taking action and moving your life forward, you have to start where you are today, realize where you want to go, and then you have to keep moving forward. You have to get to that point. You have to find your balance between true healing and peace, and then a small part of compartmentalizing the things. Like, you can compartmentalize the I was homeless back in the day part, you know what I mean, and just keep moving forward.
Right.
It's not to diminish it or demean it, but it doesn't all have to become, everything we've gone through is a part of our story, but it doesn't define who we are.
Exactly. So when you tell somebody that, Jason, and you find that they're resistant to that, are they then open to coaching, or do they need a counselor?
Most of the time they need a counselor.
Right. So, that would be my answer too, or thought. That's my thought. Right. And this is something Meg and I were talking about again. She's spent the better part of a year this past year with fitness coaches, with nutrition coaches, and instead of like dieting, or instead of like going on these fads, she's putting in the time, the work, and the effort, because she feels like she's worth it, and it makes sense, right? So to the discussions ends up being, when you feel like you're worth it, when you find that you have something of value, or that you are of value, you invest in yourself and you get a coach to help you stretch yourself. Is that correct?
I'd say absolutely. I'd say so. I think that's one of the keys. I think you hit it right on there, because it's not that a coach, as a coach, part of our jobs is to help you realize your value and your worth. But I mean, we can help you realize it, but we can't be the ones to get you to believe it. You know what I mean? I think more of the counseling piece is where you're going to need that time. You'll need that space to just kind of sit in it and let yourself, you might need 45 minutes that day to just kind of sit there and think, wow, am I really worth it? Like, can I really do that? But if you go to that coaching session, your coach and you probably do similar things, right? Like my job is to say, look, we discussed this, like you're worth it. Now we need to get you out there doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like your therapist doesn't hold your hand and push you to those limits to take action. Like they want to help you just get through the mental. I mean, and they have their place and they do their job and it's great.
Absolutely. There's
different purposes.
Exactly. So, in the aspects of us as coaches walking somebody through something, it's they have to. It's just like any coach. We can't do the work for them. Right. All we can do is provide exercises. In my opinion, is you provide like start small, right? What is something you can do today without thinking about everything tomorrow and all that other stuff? What is something you can do today that accomplishes a larger goal up in the future, right? And if you can get them to start taking these small incremental steps day after day, they're going to build up momentum. And then they're also going to build up that belief in themselves and their capabilities, because they just did this yesterday. I just did this yesterday, y'all.
Yeah.
And then, right. And then that kind of builds up on top of itself. What up, Jeremy? And what's up, guys? I want to say, everybody, thanks for joining. Jason Pockrant and I, we found each other over our dad's deaths for brevity's sake.
Lack of a better word, right?
And it wasn't even just that, right? We found my dad, he passed away of a heroin overdose after basically kind of trying to fight the battle. After fighting the battle, and when that happened, though, Jason, I had just met him for pretty much the first time in my adult life 3 months before that. And so, to be honest with you, one part I think that I've never really shared is that a big part of me feels that he saw me, understood all the things that he'd missed in his life, and may have been trying to, he shot up some heroin. Maybe he was just trying to escape everything that we had missed. So part of me always felt that way, and still kind of feels that way in a sense. Like, we met literally and totally by chance. I was driving cross country and knew the last letter I'd received was that he was in Lexington, Kentucky at the VA hospital for rehab. And I'd received that maybe a month or so earlier, or even maybe 2 months. I can't remember. But we drove past there, and I looked at my friend Kelly, and I said, Kelly, my dad may be back there, and I may never get this opportunity. This is all happenstance. I may never get an opportunity to meet him again. Should we turn around and go try it? Should we go around and should we turn the car around and check that out? And we did. I mean, drove around, went up to the stand. And the only thing I'm really kind of pissed about is not getting the family name, Jason, because my dad's name was Arthur Linton John Hanley III. I mean, come on, dude. That's a goddamn awesome name. And I got shafted. But I went to the desk and I said, hey, is he here? And he walked down, and they called him. He was there, and we met each other. What do you do when you meet a complete stranger? You know what I mean? All I could do was look at him and say, I don't really have much to say. Here we are. And I remember like chain smoking, like it was like, my lungs were just filled with smoke the entire time. I was like, because what do you say? What do you say? And I drove off after that. He died 3 months later.
Were you in communication with him? You mentioned letters. Were you guys talking, or were you just somehow aware of where he was?
So what happened was I didn't know where he was ever. Around 1997, when the internet was still like a wide open, pretty space of just like, crappy banners with neon. You could still go through. I had his social security number, and I went. I had no idea where he was, and I went to the social security homepage, and like I think it was 2 links deep, and I could just search for his social security number. I could enter in a social security number and get last known address. So I did that. Paid $15 for that. And then I called 411. I said, can I get the phone number for this address? And I called him. I left
so
a voicemail.
You were on a mission to find your dad.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
What made you do that? At what point in your life did you say, I need to find the man that I never knew.
You know, I wouldn't have, I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to say, hey. And it wasn't like, hey, it was not, and it wasn't like, why did you do what you did? Because, um, we talk about addictions. I mean, I'd gone through my rounds of, I was 19 and I'd just actually gotten home recently from a rehab center. And so I'd faced a lot of what he had faced and went through at similar ages. So even without him actually being there, I ended up doing a lot of the same things he did anyways, right? And so we had conversations about stuff like that. And again, it wasn't, I didn't look at him or it or the situation as he was missing. I found myself as, I guess they say, wanting.
Yeah, I just find it powerful. I mean, from my perspective and yours here, the fact that you still made that conscious choice to go find him. Like there are men, there are so many men in this life, like I know dad's 30 minutes away, but he left a family and I'm not calling him. Like he's a city away or he's right around the corner and they're like, I don't care. I'm not calling. I don't need him. He doesn't need me. And they carry that burden and they carry that hatred, for too long. And so I'm just intrigued by the fact that, you made a choice, and so if you think about things differently, right? You know, what would have your life been like had you not gotten that chance? What if you had not gotten that moment to see your dad before he passed away?
Well, that's
You
the
know,
thing, man. I did, I got it, I had it. And it didn't, it changed my life. I mean, honestly, uh, I did, um, I did a podcast for Father's Day, with, and gave, even though my dad wasn't here in my life, I have so much to thank him for. You know, what would you, I mean, Jason, I mean, I can flip it and say, what do you think your life would be like if your dad was still alive, still going through the addiction, still going through all the pain and suffering? Would you be able to have the life that you've got now with him still in your life?
no, I mean, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if it wasn't for him. I mean, as take it how you say it, right? But I mean, I even surprise myself at times when I've heard myself say that losing my father was the worst thing that ever could have happened to me, and it's also been the best thing that ever could have happened to me. Because had he not gone through that, had I not lost him, right, my entire life wouldn't be on the trajectory of where it is right now, doing what I'm doing. Like I would have gotten a degree in business management or whatever the case would have been. It wouldn't have been the criminal justice degree, and who knows where I would have gone or where I would have done. And I would have been that dad doing everything, working the 40-hour job for the next 40 years. I would have been that dad that I'm the guy who's against being. Like,
Right. But I think the other thing that's awesome too is, your willingness and, your willingness to express the, what I think is not talked about enough I think dads get a lot of crap, these days, or I've seen it happen where, dads that are doing what you and I are doing, taking flack for just saying how important we feel like we are.
yeah,
Because the thing is though, is that you recognize how important you are in your family's life and your child's life. And then there are people out there who won't see that. And all you're trying to do is spread that message. Is that right? Does that sound
yeah.
about right?
Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, there's nights, and you understand this. Like, I work 8 to 5, right? But when I come home and my daughter, what I mean, like Lennox wants mom to give her a bath and wants mom to put her to sleep, and that's because I don't do it enough because it's like I worked all day, I'm exhausted, I don't get it, right? And you don't realize that till enough times, and you're like, man, like Lennox doesn't want dad to put her to sleep, and you're like, and you think about that, right? And you think about how quickly that adds up, right? And for some men, they're okay with that. Like the Brandon Handley could have been okay with, I work 8 to 5, but I'm here every night, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
cool. I'm here
yeah.
every weekend, and I'm like, and I'm that crazy dad who's like, no, those 40 hours of your week are even that much more important that I don't. I am going to get my life to a point where I can choose every moment of every minute of every day to be with my wife and to be with my daughter, because that's the life I chose.
Right.
I chose a wife and I chose a daughter and I chose the family. And that's what I think as men, we need to choose to step up to do, and I'm not sure, where your convictions are, where people lie with faith, but I believe, as God in my story, I believe he put me here to live that purpose, not to live somebody else's goal and somebody else's dream and somebody else's life.
So let's expand on that. What do you mean? What do you mean by not live somebody else's life?
Well, the bottom line is, I look at it like this. I mean, the world of careers, companies, like at the end of the day, the bottom line is I can be my absolute best. You and I can be the absolute best salesman in the world for somebody else. So at the end of the day, I'm still building somebody else's dream and somebody else's goal and not mine. Like I said, if I'm at work, from 8 to 5 and I'm cold calling strangers to sell car insurance, like that, there is absolutely no difference than me doing the same thing and calling you on the phone and be like, hey, Brandon, found you on the internet, just giving you a call. Wanted to see if you want to talk about some coaching. But at the end of the day, the biggest difference in that is that the impact that I'll have on your life, or the impact that I would have on my life, financially and purposefully, is going to be that much larger by doing that, by making that choice to live for me and for my goals, as opposed to somebody else's.
No, fair. And I like that. I like that. Let's keep going with this for a second, though. When you are doing it, when you're selling your quote unquote brand, when you're making that coaching call, you're not offering. You're not saying, "Hey, I'm calling you because I want 10K." You're calling somebody up to say, "Hey, I want you to have the life that I feel like you may be missing out on."
Yeah, absolutely. I want people to realize, like, and it's funny because I used to beat myself up about it too, right? Because I'm 31 years old, right?
Yeah.
So, I get that all the time. Like, how can you coach dads? Like, you don't have, like, you got a 2-year-old and you're 31. I'm like, look, here's the bottom line. I know what life was like without a father, and I see enough of these men live that life. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
And I want you to simply realize at 28 or 26 what you're capable of doing and changing before you become that. Like, that's the message.
Yeah. Look, dude, age, I don't think really plays as big a part in all of this as much as willingness does. It's your willingness to say, hey, listen, I'm here to help people who are willing to help themselves. I'm here to help somebody who's tuning into my message and who wants to take the next step. And I also want to throw out there that Alexander took over the whole known world by the age of 19. So listen, limits are only, we're putting the limits on ourselves with an age.
Right. Yeah, I think, it's just that stigma. I think, like, men don't realize it, like, especially men, you know what I mean? Like, men are too tough. Men are too stubborn. Men aren't gonna dig through the shit, you know what I mean, to get to the bottom of it. Right. But I mean, for me, when I met my coach, it was a matter of finding someone who was already, in their 50s, who saw a 25-year-old man that was struggling and had something in him. And he was like, I believe in you. He said, you've got something and you need to go do it. And I was like, really?
So Justin points out something. Let's not discount experience, though. It matters in relation. Absolutely. Jason Pockrant has the opportunity to discuss his experience with someone who's gone through a similar experience. Jason has the opportunity to share his experience with somebody who's going through it. So somebody that's, becoming a dad or getting ready to become a dad, who has, a lot of these shared experiences. And he says, listen, I know what you've gone through. I know what you're doing. I know the pitfalls. Here's some of the stuff I have to offer for you. And I'm going to throw it out there again. If you are looking for something, you can find it. All you got to do is be willing to have that conversation.
Right.
I mean, it is that. I mean, I hate to boil it down to just that simple, but It's that simple. If I think that I'm worth it, if I'm looking for something and I'm looking real hard, I'm looking real deep. If I put an extra 10K on the line, I'm gonna look real fucking hard.
Right.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
So that's where I think the space that we're in, though, it has to be the other person's willingness. And for me, I don't have a set religion. I didn't go to church. I believe a lot of this stuff is taught, in church. I believe you can have those men's groups in church. I believe you can have those in other religions. I believe you can have those in other faiths. I think, though, that a problem for a lot of people these days is that those faiths, those religions, have publicly let people down in too many ways, that they're not willing to go there. They're afraid of a damaged shelter, as it were.
Right.
I don't know, man. Those are kind of thoughts. And guys, here's the other thing too that I think is huge. And Jason or Justin Bailey, I'm trying Alex, a lot of the people that are joining us and watching us today that have clicked the thumbs up and the love and whatnot. And guys, if you're getting something out of this, share it. Make sure that share the love. Hit some hearts. Hit some likes. Make sure people are getting this message. If there's somebody out there that you think should be hearing something like this, even if there's somebody that you don't know that you've liked with like your 2,000 people, one of those guys may need to hear this conversation, right? Because the thing is that, guys, if we're not having these conversations, if we're not talking to other guys, if we're afraid to let this bubble out, we're going to live sitting in a corner, huddled up, and not being the fathers that our children need, not being the husbands that our wives need. Do you agree with that, Jason?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's paramount to our success. I think, I can tell you one of the hardest pieces about this journey for myself, right, is I married my wife and I think it was about a year and a half before I told my wife how my dad died.
Mm. And you'd already met, like you were already married?
We were married, yeah.
And she didn't know?
I told her I had a heart attack. I was like, oh yeah, your dad had a heart attack. That's it.
Wow. Why?
And then a year and a half later, because I didn't tell anybody the story. Like I didn't want, I didn't want people to know, right? Like it was the mess of everything, like and you read the piece, for the Good Men Project, right? I didn't want to go into that detail. No, we're not playing piano right now. You got
Jason's trying to wrangle his 2.5-year-old daughter right now.
Sorry,
as well, guys.
Oh, guys. Sorry. To be fair, I'm in her bedroom and she wanted to play her keyboard, but sorry. So I didn't want to tell the messiness of it, like I didn't want to tell my wife the details, it was like, I didn't want to damage something I had, I guess.
You didn't want to damage her perception of your awesomeness.
Yeah. So I could tell you the day I was a year and a half later, I'm laying in my bed one day and then I just broke down. I was thinking about my dad and how much I missed him and everything. And I just started bawling my eyes. I'm like, I miss my dad. She's like, baby, what happened? What's wrong? And I was like, yeah, I was like, so my dad overdosed. And she's like what? And I'm like, yeah. So a year and a half into our marriage,
wow.
And that was kind of another one of those signposts for me, right? Of like,
sure,
there's men out there doing that. There's dads out there that are keeping so much shit inside. You know what I mean? And they look at people like me or they look at people like you and they're like, what are you doing just telling people that? Like, what are you doing just talking about it? Because there's men that need to hear it. When I've spoken at high schools or I've spoken at, when I gave my TEDx talk, there was a 28-year-old, and this, you'll appreciate this. He was going to counseling. He was just out of jail. He had a newborn on the way, and he was going to therapy. And his counselor told him about this TEDx event that was happening, and he bought him a ticket. And he was like, "You should go check it out." And this guy showed up by himself, like no idea what it was, where it was, like to see this young man, trying to figure it out, trying to read all the psychology books and everything. He showed up at this TEDx talk. And I remember he came up to me afterwards and he was like, you helped me decide. He was like, you helped me realize that starting today, I'm going to go all in on my life as a dad. And I was like, oh, that was awesome. And I
Yeah.
wanted to get connected with him, and I wanted to keep in touch. And then I called, and the number was disconnected. So I've never seen him again.
Right.
But to your point, Brandon, like it needs to be said so often, because there is that man, there is that boy, there is that person out there that needs to hear that one message, that one time, that one day, that one moment when
That's
you
it.
show up at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning to say it, or when you
Yeah.
put on your special tank top and
It's
share
beautiful.
the
Yeah, man. Listen. And the other part of it too, right? The tank top thing. I just want to throw this out there. There has got to be some levity in it too, right? You've got to be able to approach it with a good sense of humor, some good laughter. And because I'm just throwing shit out there, but I'm going to say, what is love without laughter? All that stuff. What is life if you can't laugh a little bit? How seriously do we take what we're doing and the space that we're in so seriously? Because it means so much, right, to us. Every once in a while, though, we got to laugh about it because that also lets it out. I like what you said here, though, too, Jason. In one of the things that you did was you broke down because you were holding something in, and you also faced a crazy fear when you finally told your wife the story, because there must have been something inside of you that said, how's she going to react to this? Right? How's she going to react if she knows the truth? And then when you shared it and she, I'm guessing, since she's still with you, accepted it. I'm guessing she also said, hey, why don't you go ahead and not hold it in for a year and a half next time?
Yeah. That was the response.
And then the other thing is, when we are willing to share something that we've been afraid of and let it out, it's now behind us. You now have that opportunity to move on. It's like, it's really not that big of a deal. And I'll give you two examples from this past week for me. One was like, I literally went through some just serious mental shit. You talk about God and your faith, whereupon I stumbled, into a feeling of faith. If I was a church going man, Jason, I would call it what you said. I've come to see the light, right? I've, touched by an angel, all that other stuff. But that's how I felt. But trying to share that with my wife, that was kind of terrifying. Trying to say that, hey, right now I feel like I'm kind of imbued by like a certain happiness that I don't think I should be feeling right now. And even she was like, are you on anything right now? I was like, no, that's what's terrifying about it. Because I haven't had a single drink for like 6 months. And I used to drink like every night, and I just stopped cold turkey. I just stopped drinking. And one of the reasons I stopped, Jason, was because like every day I was feeling better. Every day I was feeling better about who I was. Every day I was feeling better about who I was becoming. Every day, like I was becoming the man that I intended to be. But sharing all that stuff where I'm like, hey, I'm feeling this way and it's crazy, I don't know what to do with it. Telling your wife that you're feeling a little loco and getting the response of you got an opportunity of two responses, Jason. You got an opportunity to be like, well, you're gonna have to get the fuck out because you're crazy now. Or you'd be like, okay, let's talk through it a little bit. But being willing to face the fears that you're having, especially with someone that you've married and had a vow to God before with, who found you for some reason, if you don't open up to that person, who are you going to open up to?
Well, there's a reason we don't do that too, because the people closest to us will try their hardest to keep us where we are because they're comfortable. Mm-hmm. They're most comfortable knowing us as we are. So when we start changing and even with coaching clients, I remember when I started with Terry, he forewarned me, like when an individual goes through coaching and they start changing, the very first person who becomes the most comfortable is their spouse, because they either have to get on board.
Uncomfortable? Oh yeah.
Uncomfortable. Yeah, they have to get on board with where I'm going, or they're going to be like, I can't handle Jason. Like, what's
Mm.
What's Jason talking about? All of a sudden, he's confident and he's charging money and he's like he wants to speak and he wants to. And I face that with my family right now.
Yeah.
You know, like my mom and my brother and my sister, and just going through some of that personal piece. Right, is I've been telling my story. I've been telling my dad's story as if it was just my story. Like I forgot that it's their story too, and that they're a
Sure.
part of this.
Yeah.
But they weren't ready for it. They didn't want to tell it. They didn't want to share it. They didn't want to talk about it. So I was like, "That's cool. You guys can stay there. Jason's going places. Jason's got to change the world. Like I'm
on fire.
I'm on fire."
Let's talk about the willingness, because I actually asked one of my coaches when I got started in this. I said, "Hey, what gives me the audacity to do this? Why is somebody going to live? Why am I doing this? Right? I was willing to do it, but I kind of needed to know why. Right? What do you tell people? Or what was your perception of that before you started doing it? Right? What was your like? Who am I to do this? And then talk about that journey a little bit.
Oh man. I'm going to go at it from this angle. So it's interesting because I find that, so I started this journey 3 years ago in 2012 when I got business cards and I started financial coaching and I was going to be the next Dave Ramsey and help all these families stop struggling. Life was going to be great. Right. So when I started, I was on fire because like, I got this. It's awesome. No one needs to struggle. Let's figure it out. Okay.
Yeah.
But I also spent those 2 years just kind of on the surface. Like I didn't share the meat and the potatoes and the real storiness of, and I don't think it all, the majority of it came out till I did that article for the Good Men Project. And that was in 2015, I think.
Yeah.
So for me, it was kind of the journey of still figuring out why I'm worth it or why I'm able to do it. But not taking credit for it. What I will say is one of my mentors, Brian Pruitt, he has a local program called Power of Dad, and he works with fatherless boys.
Okay.
And he speaks all over the world. He goes all over, right? And he comes from 4 generations of abusive men. So he finally, he broke that cycle, right? His grandfather actually killed his grandmother, I believe. But so we had a conversation one day about this, right? And he told me he had to sit down with his mom one day and say, look, if you don't like this is my story, and if you don't like the way the book was written, you should have changed the story. Like it's his right and his obligation to tell his story, whether it may hurt his mom or it may hurt his father, it may hurt his grandfather. Like he's got that right to tell that story. And so by no means am I perfect or am I that guy. I'm at a point in my life today where I'm just now starting to really embrace that authenticity and realize that for myself and for my healing and for my own worth and my own power, though, I have the right to tell this story because of the impact it will help others with. For me to live true to my convictions, I have to be able to say, I need to be able to tell the story from the middle of the story, from being in that story, as opposed to hiding from some of my words because of how it will hurt, because of who it might hurt, whilst being tactful, I guess, and not, destroying what we have.
I think that my wife will tell you that the tactful part is something that I'm working on.
Yeah.
Now, what's funny though too is that I love how you and your wife met, and you had a version of yourself that you had told her, and that she didn't even. You don't think she knew the real you then, by virtue of kind of withholding that information. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I could say that.
Okay. So I'm gonna give Meg another high five. I know she's watching, but I mean, dude, she knew what a mess I was. And multiple times. And for that, I'm grateful, man, because without and even this past, like I said, a couple of weeks, without having her support and at least just saying, all right, well, whatever whatever bus you're driving, I may not be on it, but like I'll hang out over here and watch you drive, right? And I've got a bus I'm on too. Like, you know, everybody's kind of got their own thing. But the other thing I want to throw out there too, Jason, is that men having these talks is huge. That's what the Tank Top Trio is about. That's what you and I having these conversations is about. That's what the lack of a father brings. Not having a father who you can sit there and say, all right, dude, I'm going through some shit. What's up? What do I need to prepare for? What's around the bend, right? Not having that is kind of what facilitates the need sometimes for a father coach, a dad coach. You know, saying, all right, look, dude, I see where you've been. I see what you're going through. I'm interested because I'm stuck in a place and I need help out. Is that fair?
Fair.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, brother. I mean, that's kind of, hey, look, this is Jason and I's this is our first kind of conversation in person. We thought we'd share it with you guys in all honesty. And this has been, I think, a super honest conversation. These are conversations that, guys, if you're afraid to have them, walk into your fears, man. There's if you're not familiar with Rory Vaden, he tells a story of the buffalo, right? I don't know. Have you heard? Do you know what a buffalo does in a rainstorm, Jason?
No.
All right, man. This is fun. What do most animals do in a rainstorm? What do you do? You run. You're like, oh, here comes the rain.
Oh yeah. Well,
I hate the rain. I don't want to get wet. Buffaloes run into the storm, dude. They run through the storm. So what that does, though, is like, all right, where's my hand? Here's the storm here, and it's coming at you. You can run with the storm and get rained on the whole time. But usually what happens is the storm's passing over in this direction, right? If you run through the storm, you cut that time in half.
Okay.
So it's kind of you run through the storm, run into the storm, run past the storm. Don't run away from it, guys. I mean, that's what I'm trying to get at here. Spend less time in the goddamn storm.
Yeah. I think the longer we hide from it, the more we're in the storm. And that's my, that's one of my viewpoints on it. I tell people all the time, like, I don't care about the weather. I don't care about the sports. I don't care about the news. Like, if I could meet men, and have these conversations up front, like, that's what I live for.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
like,
sir.
I'm that crazy guy. I'm like, oh, they're like, hey, where do you work? I'm like, what do you do for fun? Like, what kind of hobbies do you got? Like, what's going on in your life? And they're like, I don't really think we're going to talk anymore. I'm just going to
which is fine.
Yeah. And
which
I'm
is
like,
fine.
that's cool.
It's a missed opportunity on their part, maybe.
Right.
I think the other thing too, Jason, is that and I have an issue with this. I kind of suck at this. I'm getting better, but it's like meeting people where they are too. Maybe have that conversation for a little bit. Be like, oh yeah, the Jets, they're on fire this year. Let's go eat some nachos, have a beer until you're ready to talk. Right. So I mean, there's that. I'm working on that. I'm working on meeting people where they are versus, hey, I'm over here. I'm doing awesome. I feel great. So should you, but you don't need to know the reasons why. Just feel great. Right. You got to kind of say, all right, well, we're both Toastmasters. I don't know if you're still in it.
Yeah.
Are you still in Toastmasters? Okay. One of the best things that one of the directors told me is like, one of the things that leaders do is they reach their hands down and they bring people with them. Right. So, I mean, I think that's what we're doing. We're bringing people with us. We're not perfect. We're sharing our journey as it goes along, but we also, there are certain parts that we've been through that we are capable, more than capable of helping others get through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So that's it. That's the morning, right? So I want to say thanks, man, for hopping on. This was actually your idea. So if there's anything else that you want to throw out there while we've got this platform today, do it, brother.
No, I just want to tell everyone, I just want everyone to take action on living your life. Find somebody that you can connect with, find somebody to have these conversations. I would absolutely love it if anyone is interested. I've got a handful of copies of the book sitting in my bedroom that are serving no purpose in my bedroom. So if anybody wants to pick up shipping and handling, let me know. I'll send you out a copy of the book. But live the life you're meant to live, be the dad, be there for your daughter, find the thing, find something, create something with your life, live a legacy. When I talked about it with Dave last week, if you're okay with the day job, that's totally fine. But what are you doing in the meantime?
Yeah, dude,
Like,
yeah. Do something along with that. I think that listen, there's other there's a whole you can go a whole bunch of different ways with that as well too. Get involved with your community. I had a great conversation with a gentleman a couple weeks back, Kim Harrington, who he's got his day job, does really well, but he's also heavily involved in like uh, uh, ministries at the jail, at the prison, ministries at the juvenile court. Initialize these conversations in some way if you can. Initiate it. Don't wait for people to come to you. Go somewhere. Like you speak in places. You go to places and you talk to other people. And you know what? It's like another coach of mine said, Sam Crowley. Hats off to Sam. You can never say the wrong thing to the right audience.
right.
So if people are coming and they're listening and they want to hear, then they're there for what you have to say. And they're looking because they want, they, as I said, I found myself wanting, I needed some things and I've got them, I need maybe some more things and I keep moving forward, but I'm not moving forward and not trying to bring anybody with me. I'm like, hey, let everybody jump on this shit because it's going to be awesome. I don't know. Right. And I'll throw out there too. I mean, Jason, Jason's got his stuff. He's got his book. I just this week finally finished. I'm just going to call it my funnel because I don't have a better way to, and I hate calling things products, but I like to call them experiences. Listen, I'm going to offer my experiences with everybody. I just loaded up Fatherhood by Design.xyz. It's a 5-part video series. If you just go to Fatherhood by Design, I'll also send you like my take on law of attraction, which is really just resetting your filters, guys. Reset your filters. As Jason and I were talking about in the beginning here, focus on the positive things that you've got in your life. You can't take those things away. They can't be taken away from you. Look at the positive things. Celebrate something that you do today. Like Jason and I got on this conversation and did this today. Tonight I'm gonna be like, I talked to some dude who gives a TEDx talk and he wanted to talk to me. We talked with each other and it was awesome. I'm gonna be talking all about it. And the best thing for me too is that having not drank and feeling, you talked about becoming your authentic self, having been sober and just stepping more and more into myself every day and realizing that I don't need to get drunk and stupid to be I don't need to get drunk to be stupid and crazy. Right. I just go ahead and do that.
For sure.
Yeah. And have a good time with it. And I just want people to see that you don't have to drink until 4:00 in the morning to have these conversations with your buddy.
Right.
I mean, and you can. Look, I'm not saying don't have these conversations wherever you can, because that's the other part. One of the other parts that I'll throw out there before, we wrap it up is that, look, I struggled at the beginning of this year hard with wanting to stop drinking because I realized that that's not who I wanted to be anymore. And I did it for like probably 3 or 4 months where I'd make progress for 4 days. I'd work like hell on Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. And then I would drink all weekend. I'd get wasted. And then I'm like, this is not who I want my children to become. This is not who I am. Again, lack of better terminology, destined to be. This is not who I am. This is not serving me. And I think that that's something else that you probably bring up often with your guys is what is serving you. And let's not look at what is serving me as this guy over here, my boss, is not serving me anymore. He's got to go. Let's ratchet it down a little bit to some of the smaller inane things that aren't going to have such a crazy jump off the ship impact. Like maybe one thing that's got to go is coffee. Maybe one thing that's got to go is sugar. Maybe reduce some of the stimulants in your life so you can have some peace of mind. I don't know. Those are things that may not be serving you anymore.
Right.
Are those conversations you have or bring up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tell people all the time, with every yes, with everything we say yes to, we have to say no to something else. And when we talk about, the conversation you can get into all day long about balance, and there is finding balance, or, the extreme opposite, there is no balance, right? There's only priorities. You have to realize what's serving you and what's not. Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom line. And you're never going to know what that is until you align your priorities, your goals with your priorities, with your actions and your vision. And we can get into a whole nother conversation you'd appreciate. I've been having with my friend about the goalpost, right? And just realize that for us that are out there striving so hard to do these things, at least for myself. So as a perfectionist, as a high achiever, we realize that our goalposts, the goalposts, we need to know what our absolute maximum goal is, and then what our absolute worst case scenario is. So if those are our goalposts, we got to realize that sometimes we might feel like we're kicking from the 50-yard line and we're going left and we're swinging right and we're going left and we're not getting anywhere. But that's because our goalpost might be too large, because we might be getting it just somewhere in the middle that's still moving us forward. But realize too, on that same point, Brandon says, if what you're doing every day isn't serving you, if you're not even getting your kick inside the goalpost, inside your bigger vision, then you need to cut it. You need to cut what's not serving you. And that may be people, that may be things, that may be activities, it may be projects. It may just be the biggest challenge usually is just how often you say yes to other people and how often you say yes to things that you can't commit to. So just be cautious of it, I'd say.
Yeah, Jason, I think we could probably do this like literally all day. We could probably do this for the entire weekend. So we should catch up again on it. Maybe even make a thing of it. I don't know, make it a series or whatever. I know you've got and your podcast is the Fatherless Father. Is that it?
Well, it's called Fatherless to Fatherhood. I believe it's still in iTunes. I stopped doing it though, so I got about 35 episodes. I plan on canning them up, putting them into an MP3 or something, and then just having that available to give out to dads that want to hear it. So,
okay.
So there's that. But father-daughter-conversationsbook.com. I believe you can go there and still get a free copy. Just pay for shipping and handling. And then one other piece though, definitely check out Brandon's. Here's one thing I want to lead on. This is gonna be my segue to the next episode or the next time you guys might hear me, right? I got into a conversation yesterday with Brandon briefly about spam, and I thought he was extremely upset about canned ham. But he's got that awesome Facebook group you guys know about fatherhood for the rest of us.
Thanks, brother.
But to your point, man, when you say that you can never say the wrong thing to the right audience, one thing I want people to realize too, right, is that when we're out in this world, when there's people like Brandon, there's people like myself, and there's people like Justin Bailey with the Code of Character, we're all doing these things and we're truly serving. We're coming from a place of servanthood. We're just realize, I was at work and I had a girl, I had this young girl. I went to talk to her about a disability income policy, and she looked at me and she was like, "Are you done upselling us yet?" She was like, "You've sold us enough." And I was like, "I'm going to take those as words of endearment on my sales ability." But then I thought about it, right? I thought about the idea of like everyone, we all seem to think we're getting sold to, right?
Yeah.
But here's the bottom line. You're being sold to on the webinar that says you need to pay $9.97 before the webpage expires. And I've been that guy that's been anal enough to go back 2 days later and realize the link's still there.
Right.
Like you can still buy it.
Yeah.
But just realize, just realize that you're not being sold to, but you're being offered an opportunity to get something that may change your life. Because I had a guy who
sent me dropping bombs, y'all.
I had a guy who sent me a link for he sent me an Amazon link for a little suction cup to put my phone on the dashboard. And this guy said, "Hey, used an affiliate link. Don't hate, bro." And I was like, you know what? I can't be mad at that guy because that's what life's about. He's taken the steps to change his life. And if he can get an extra $3 and it don't hurt me in any way, I'm going to help him out.
Dude, I served you. I was like, look, you had a question. Right. You had a question. Right. I had a theoretical answer. And I was like, why the should Amazon benefit from my, and this is, we could do this shit all day. But this is one of the reasons though, Jason, like I said, I quit drinking because I don't want to be that example to my children. And I don't this is coming from a guy that makes beer, have a kegerator. I don't care about this is my choice. Right. This is my personal choice. I threw away, I donated all of my Budweiser, Yingling. I had some awesome, shirts. why am I advertising for a company that I don't believe in anymore or is not sponsoring? I'm not getting paid to wear these shirts, man. I'm not getting paid to advertise Budweiser. And and it doesn't serve a purpose for me anymore. I'm not sitting here going, this is the beer I like. You should like it too. Right? And there's no affiliate link with that shit either. It's like I'm literally advertising. I'm a walking billboard for a company or something I don't believe in anymore. So that is also just another choice that I have made more recently, is like who I am, what I wear, the things that I express need to be 100% who I am, in alignment with all of that. And I am okay with that. I'm wonderful with it.
Right. That's awesome.
So if anybody wants that affiliate link, just tag this conversation. but yeah, no. And I think that you would also post the spam thing. Here's the other thing about the spam, and here's the other thing about getting sold to. Listen, if you're interested in something, follow your curiosity, guys. If that curiosity leads to a $500 link, how curious are you? Right. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you guys. My curiosity cost me a lot of money, but it also instilled in me a lot of belief that I didn't realize I had. And I've got it now. And it's just like, wow. And I mean, I can give you the short answer, right? It's like, you've already got everything you need. You've got to believe that. And if you're not willing to believe that you've got everything you need right now and you need some help getting there, that's what we're here for.
Yeah. Well, I think I just want everyone out there listening, I guess, I probably didn't make my point clear enough. What I think I want you guys to take away from it is that, from my experience, right, when I started out, I didn't believe enough in who I was and what I was selling to promote it. I felt like I'm telling Brandon, you've got a daughter, you should really pick up a copy of Father-Daughter Conversations. But then I was like, the bottom line is, I want him to really get a copy of the book because he has a daughter. I don't care about the $6 I get. I don't care about the $3, like Al Dubon, and I'm assuming you know Al.
I know. Yeah.
So I love Al, right? Like, I call him and I talk all the time about this stuff, right? And when I saw his video and I saw his promo, he was talking props about the code of character. And then when I got a hold of Justin, and he was like, just jump on the call, right? There's no, like, it's beautiful to see us men, us entrepreneurs that are doing this thing. It's beautiful to see us men and us entrepreneurs doing this thing and having the power behind what we believe in and what we have to offer and presenting it to people. And I didn't feel like I tried to get sold on the code of character, you know what I mean? But I felt like it was a genuine invitation to say, look at what I have. Right. When I started with my coach, he said, it was this simple, Jason. If you walk around a room full of people and you ask 10 people, hey, do you want my cookie? Do you want a cookie? Do you want a cookie? Right? And like 9 of them say no. One person's going to say, yeah, you know what? I'll take it. But it's not you. Rejection's never personal.
Right. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the thought, the idea,
They just don't want the cookie. They just don't want the book. They just don't want the course.
And that's fine.
They just don't want the thing. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But for you, don't be afraid to tell somebody, this is what I created.
Yeah.
Because that's what stops other men that want to be authors, other men that want to be speakers, other men that want to give a TEDx talk, because they won't take it.
100% agreed. 100% agreed. And look, man, it was really hard for me to release that product that I just did this weekend. I shared it with like 1 million people, and I kind of glanced it. I got some feedback, and then it just dawned on me. I just said, listen, it's never going to be perfect. It may not be the best. But our first stab at anything isn't going to be the best, but it is a starting point.
Right.
And you got to start somewhere, guys.
Right. And I want everyone to know that you can serve and you can help these men achieve their goals. So let's not be selfish, and let's take one step and do one thing to serve one person. And so I want whoever's out there listening, my challenge for you is to do one thing. If that's buy a book and leave a review on Amazon, that helps that one author. That would help me in one small way. If it's a matter of buying Brandon's course, what are you selling it for? 30.
Dude, it is like dirt cheap for all my blood, sweat, and tears. My entire life for $37, y'all.
So $37, you can get a cup of Brandon. Like I want you to take action and help one person. If your one thing that you can do today is to buy Brandon's course or to buy my book or to join the Code of Character, I want you to take action, do that one thing, and go back to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, the Facebook group, or go into the Code of Character on Facebook, or go into the Dads That Lead if you're in that group with us, and let me know what you did. And also do that for one other person. So do something for one person. You know, I would love if anybody would pick up a copy of the book. I'm also going to take this second to give a quick stab, a small plug. I'm needing some assistance with my next project. And you got a daughter, right, Brandon?
No.
You just got two boys?
Just got two boys. Holy smokes. Okay. Yeah, I got two boys. I just got two boys.
All right. Well, I'm going to need you to have another daughter so you can help me out. But I need to find some men that have daughters to help me with my project I want to launch called Father-Daughter Journal. So if you are a dad out there,
I synced you up, brother. I synced you up. But go ahead, keep going. Get somebody else. I got you with somebody. Hook up with that guy.
So I need somebody. That's what I'm looking for. Either buy a copy of Father-Daughter Conversations and change the life and change the relationship you have with your daughter now, or reach out to me and help me out, or pick up a copy of Brandon's new course, or check out the Code of Character Mastermind with Mr. Bailey, who I believe you said was on the call earlier.
Yeah. Justin was hanging out. And then, guys, one last thing just before I get off: do something for yourself. Do something for yourself, and don't feel guilty for it. Do not feel you are worth it.
You're worth it.
You're worth it. You're worth it, Jason. I gotta go.
All right, man.
All right, brother. I'm gonna stop the Facebook Live, guys. Show your support. Share this with anybody. I mean, there are so many opportunities for you to embrace fatherhood. Please do so. There's so many. Hey, look, my wife is watching. There's women, guys. Embrace who you are. Invest in yourself. You are worth it. Later, guys.